Assalamu alaikum. As the press, it is our duty to inform the masses about the changes shaping their realities. Sometimes a little change can go a long way, and we believe in the power of our voice to inform, educate, and make a real difference. I'm Zaishan Amir, and this is the Fourth Estate. Without a doubt, UNDP is the world's largest multilateral developmental grant aid agency, and over the years, it has grown to become one of the Maldives' most important developmental partners. It offers cooperation to the Maldives in various fields of development and continues to do so with a great vigor. Tonight, we meet with UNDP Maldives to find out more about its projects and efforts in the Maldives. To discuss the subject, I'm joined by the UN Resident Coordinator in the Maldives, Ms. Shoko Noda. Ms. Shoko, welcome to the Fourth Estate.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. My first question is, what is your role as the UN Resident Coordinator in the Maldives?
UN has been here for a long time, and the Maldives is celebrating its 50th anniversary of UN's Maldives membership in the UN. So within that context, I am coordinating all the UN development support to the Maldives. But I cannot do the job by myself. I work very closely with the government to ensure that the UN support remains relevant in the very changing context in the Maldives.
In one of your recent speeches, we heard you saying that the Maldives is a success story. What exactly is your impression of our country?
Yes, there are a lot of stories to tell the rest of the world about Maldives' success story. For example, for the past 40 years, when you look at the life expectancy, it has increased by 30 years. I think that's phenomenal numbers. From 47 to 77. Also, when the Maldives became independent and became the UN member, Maldives was one of the poorest, 20 poorest country in the world. But when now you look at the per capita income, it is above $7,000. 50 years ago, it was only 160. So it's a huge step that Maldives has made. Also, in other areas like education participation and also healthcare system, I think Maldives has made a lot of progress.
What do you think is the secret behind our success?
Wherever there is a progress like this, there is a sense of national ownership of development. If I look at my own country, Japan, we also was, I think, late in joining the development stage, but I do believe that we have made a lot of progress in Japan. So the same thing, it's people who have to own the country's own development, and for that I think the credit goes to the Maldivian people.
Speaking of Japan, it's a country that has helped us in many ways in the past and continues to help us for future projects and developmental efforts. What do you have to say about the relationship between your country and us?
Well, I don't represent Japan. I work for the UN, but in my personal view, I think Japan has made a lot of contributions to the Maldives. It's opening the embassy here in Male next year, so I have high expectation for them to continue their support to the Maldives.
We have had 50 long years of partnership with UNDP. What do you think? What are your expectations for this relationship for the future?
For the future, as I said in the beginning, UN would like to remain relevant. UNDP would like to remain relevant in the Maldives, and as just highlighted, there are a lot of progress that the Maldives has made. So the kind of support that we are giving during tsunami, it's no longer relevant. It's a change in context in the Maldives. So we would like to bring development solutions from different parts of the world, but to find the localized, contextualized development solution which fit to the Maldives. Also, as I said, there are a lot of good examples coming from Maldives, and that can be also shared with the rest of the world. So we would like to be a two-way development partner with Maldives to bring solutions, but also to share the success story with the rest of the world.
How much importance do you think we should accord to UNDP as a developmental partner?
That's the judgment that I think Maldivian people should make. But from our side, as I said, we would like to provide relevant and innovative solutions. We also think that UN and UNDP cannot continue the way we have been working in different countries. So to learn more about Maldives, what are the needs, and be ahead of the curve, so that we can provide very innovative and timely solutions to development challenges.
Can you tell us something about your past experiences working with UN?
Well, this is my 18th year in the United Nations, and before that I worked in eight different countries.
Wow.
Since '98. I started in Tajikistan, and then moved to Kosovo right after the conflict. Well, Tajikistan was also right after the civil war. And then moved to Yugoslavia. At that time it was still Yugoslavia, of Serbia and Montenegro being one country. And then I went to my headquarters in New York to work with the head of UNDP at that time. And so I had a chance to travel to Africa, to Asia, Middle East, many countries. After that, I spent half a year in Africa, in Congo, as part of the peacekeeping mission, and then moved to Mongolia, Nepal, and Maldives. So if you are a bit familiar with the geography, I have been to all the landlocked countries.
Wow.
So
that's nice.
But it's very nice to see very beautiful blue ocean every day here.
So what is the most important lesson that you have learned traveling to these landlocked countries, living through times of war and conflict? What have you learned?
I think so each country is going through the different stage of development, and the important thing is that the work of development needs to be owned by people. It cannot be done by UNDP or any other bilateral agencies. We can come and support, but you have to be the Maldivians, or the country's people have to be in the driving seat to move the work forward.
So your argument is that development comes from within the people.
Yes.
And they have to work for it.
Yes.
No one else is going to do it for them.
We can only support.
Now, what do you think are the most pressing developmental challenges for Maldives?
The most visible development challenge that I see every day is waste. The garbage. I live in Fulumale, so the 15 minutes of walk that I have from my apartment to Jetty, I see a lot of empty bottles, cans, and I wish people have a bit more conscious not to throw those things to their own environment. In the end, it's the environment that we belong to, and we have to really protect rather than take it for granted.
So how do you think we can address this challenge, waste management, as an issue?
Two ways. One, public campaign. About a month ago, there was a International Youth Day. So the whole UN, including myself, participating in the garbage collection work that one NGO is doing. So we got together in tsunami area and then collected a lot of garbage. was quite stunning how much people can throw. We are hoping that that kind of initiative, I think it was called Damage Control Project, that kind of project would come again from the Maldivian people's side to raise awareness. I think that's very important. But continuing to pick garbage is not the long-term solution. And we have to have a very good garbage waste management system in place. And that doesn't come only from the beautiful national framework that we have. It has to be, again, owned and managed by people, by community. 2 weeks ago, I was in Uklas, and that island is known for very effective waste management. And I was speaking to just a person who was passing in front of me without making an appointment, but she could really talk about how effective the waste management have become in Uklas. And then I learned that it comes from the leadership of the atoll and island councils, as well as people's commitment, community people's commitment to the work.
So how can we sustain this momentum of change? As you said, in Uklas, there are excellent waste management practices. So how can we sustain this for future?
I think we have to think of the incentives for communities, community people to join. And in Uklas again, they are using garbage waste as a source of income. That they have, I visited the waste management, how do you call it, the collection center, garbage collection center. So part of it is used for compost. And they are now selling it to nearby resort hotels. I think they recently sold 80 tons of compost. And I think that's the way to go. The plastic bottles, empty cans, they are still resources that we can recycle. And if we set up that system in place, and then once people start to see the benefit of waste management, then I think that will become much more sustainable.
So essentially, what the UN can do is to offer support, and the development should come from the people. But one example of the UN's assistance to the Maldives recently was the UNDAF document, which is the United Nations Developmental Assistance Framework, which was signed between the Maldives and UNDP. And we saw you at the ceremony, our Foreign Minister, Dunia Mamun. It was an excellent sight to see that a landmark agreement was being signed, where 53 million US dollars is being given to the Maldives for developmental projects of varying size and importance. So what do you have to say about this UNDAF document, this framework? How important is it?
It's important for the Maldives, and that's the vision that we have agreed between the government, civil society, development partners, also based outside of Male, and UN. So it's not really UN's framework, but it's a framework that all the stakeholders agree to work on for the next 5 years. I was very impressed with this, again, the sense of national ownership during the formulation process. Many government counterparts, civil society representatives came to the meeting to see how they can contribute jointly to the development efforts that we want to make. So that was the foundation for the successful implementation of UNDAF. But it's just a planning stage that we finish, and actual work will start from next year. So we really like to count on the partnership of all the stakeholders to work together.
Now, the UNDAF document has certain priority areas, 4 priority areas that are in the framework. What were the motivations behind the priority areas?
They are gender, youth and children, governance, and environment climate. These are the 4 areas, and these are the areas that government and UN agreed to work together. So it's not UN who is suggesting it, but there was a long consultation process to focus on these 4, and these are the areas where UN can also bring comparative advantage. So it's very important that UN's assistance is not spread but to focus on these 4 areas.
Now, these 4 priority areas are the areas in which we should do more work with the assistance that we are getting from the UNDP, from the program. What are your expectations for the outcomes in each of these priority areas over the next 5 years? Which areas do you think we have to work more? Which areas do you think we are going to do better, perhaps, maybe during this period?
If you look at the status of MDG, Millennium Development Goals, there are goals which are still lagging behind. One is gender, one is environment. I think these are the 2 areas that which need more work. So definitely those are the areas that we are working very, very hard. But there's no priority within those areas that we will focus more. One thing I would like to say is that gender is one of the 4 areas that we are looking at, but within governance, within climate change and environment, within youth and children, there's always a gender component, and that's something that is very, very important. The Maldives has done a lot of excellent work so far, has made a lot of progress. At school level, gender parity is achieved at primary and secondary school. I think that's fantastic. And if you compare within the South Asian region, the overall gender disparities is smallest in the Maldives. But when you look at for example, the political representation of women, it's only 6% at the local and national level parliament. We have now a fantastic 3 women ministers in the cabinet. But when you think that 49% of the population is women, there should be more.
We expect more representation.
Yes. So we are focusing specifically on gender parity, and that's something that I also personally passionate about it. So we like to work with committed women and men for that.
So you've stated that the political representation of women is very low in the Maldives, and this is something that we should work on. How can we do it?
Many ways to do, but the bottom line is that everything starts in a family, at home.
At home.
Well, even if we have excellent laws and then quota and so on, but
and all
yes,
this.
but it can be lip service unless the heart is put to it. And where does it start? It's from home. So it's I think all the men, including yourself, have an important role to play, and we should not have double tongue. But from home to encourage women's participation, girls' participation is very, very important. My personal experiences, it's very difficult to talk about gender or women's empowerment with my own father, because we don't agree. We come from different generations, but I think that's the hurdle that we need to overcome, and I think it really should come from of course, from home. But at the same time, as I said, a quota system should be considered, and if it cannot be met, there should be some sort of penalties, and to make sure that we have more women and women's perspective is reflected in the decision-making process.
Interesting. Now, you have worked in countries like Tajikistan, Kosovo, and some countries in Africa, such as Congo, defined by war, conflict, disorder, chaos, poverty, all these issues. What can we learn from these countries as far as our developmental agenda is concerned?
Many countries can go back to war after the peace agreement is signed. Congo is probably not the very best example, but they have been in a civil war for a long time. On the other hand, a country like Tajikistan, who suffered a lot from the collapse of the Soviet Union, They have now come out of that worst situation and is doing pretty well economically. It's also a new democracy, and I see a little bit of similarities between the Maldives and Tajikistan as well. I think, as I said, people have to really believe in the future. People have to believe in the bright future of the country and have to drive their own development.
Justice is also one of the sectors that we have to improve, of course, as a developing country with a fledgling democracy. What do you think are the ways in which we can consolidate the delivery of justice in the Maldives?
I agree with you fully that unless justice is here, the development cannot really have solid results. I think the one to have a very solid system of justice is very important, and second, also people's awareness. What is just simply what is good, what is not good. When the corruption is observed, have a confidence in speaking up, and that sense of, I think, freedom of speech, feel free to speak up, express themselves. That's also very important.
Now, you're leading the UN country team here in the Maldives. What is your vision for the development of the Maldives under your watch?
As I said, there are a lot of development success coming from Maldives. In order to sustain those benefit of development, I think in the future, from now on, the redistribution of wealth is very important. That we need to minimize inequality which still exists in the country, and as I said, make sure that all people feel that they are participating in the development process of the country.
And what is your message to the public?
My message is that UN remains here and would like to continue working with you all and provide relevant support. UN is yours, that you own the United Nations, so we would like to always hear from you how we can work with you and can really produce more positive development, successful stories of Maldives.
Thank you, Ms. Shoko, for speaking with us. It was an enjoyable conversation.
Thank you.
With this, we conclude this season of The Fourth Estate. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.